The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with laughter. Representatives from dozens of species filled the vast hall, their varied forms bathed in the soft blue glow of the Council's floating data displays. At the center, standing alone, was the lone human delegate, Commander Eric Vasquez. The Council had summoned humanity to this assembly to discuss the matter of their reckless expansion into the Orion Arm. But everyone knew the truth. This was just another opportunity for the galaxy's ruling species to mock the upstart race from Sol. A hulking Brakthor warlord, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the artificial lights, leaned forward. Humans, you are fragile. You are weak. You fight with passion, not with reason. You are unfit for this galaxy. Ripples of amusement spread through the hall. A serpentine Zelvani diplomat coiled around its floating platform, hissing in agreement. Your wars are messy. Your technology is primitive. And your species, despite its rapid breeding, is utterly insignificant. Commander Vasquez didn't flinch. His dark eyes swept across the gathered council members. He had expected this. Humanity had been underestimated before. The Brakthor warlord's mandibles clicked. We should guide your species. Strip you of your crude little warships. Place your planets under proper supervision. The Zelvani diplomat's golden eyes gleamed. Or perhaps we simply let nature take its course. The weak perish. The strong survive. Another round of laughter. Vasquez clenched his fists, but his voice remained calm. You think we're weak, he said. Because you've never fought us. Silence. The council chamber grew deathly quiet. A regal-looking Ithari senator, his bioluminescent skin shifting in alarm, tilted his head. That sounds like a threat, Commander Vasquez. Vasquez smirked. No. Just a warning. More laughter. The Brakthor warlord leaned back, shaking his head. Human bravado. I have crushed entire worlds, little man. What could you possibly do? Vasquez tapped a small device on his wrist. A holographic projection flickered into the air, showing real-time footage. The laughter died instantly. The screen displayed a fleet, an alien fleet. The mighty forces of the Brakthor, the Zelvani, and their allies. Hundreds of warships, positioned just outside a human colony world, ready for an easy conquest. Then the impossible happened. The human fleet arrived. It wasn't large. By galactic standards, it was tiny. A few dozen vessels, sleek and dark, almost insignificant against the colossal armadas of the Council races. But when the battle began, everything changed. The Brakthor's heavy dreadnoughts opened fire first. Their plasma lances streaked toward the human ships, only for them to vanish. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The Zelvani diplomat recoiled. Impossible. Your ships are still there, Vasquez finished. But you can't see them. The footage continued. The human ships flickered in and out of existence, ghosts slipping between the enemy fleet. And then they struck. A Brakthor battleship exploded, torn apart by unseen forces. Another ship was sliced in half, its wreckage spiraling into space. The human fleet didn't fight like any other species. They didn't clash in grand, brute force engagements. They struck from the shadows. They disrupted. They erased. And the enemy fleet? It was falling apart. The Brakthor warlord's mandibles clicked furiously. This is false. A fabrication. Vasquez simply gestured to the screen. The battle was still unfolding in real time. Another enemy cruiser detonated as human strike craft, using some kind of adaptive cloaking field, weaved through their ranks. Every conventional countermeasure was failing. The Ithari senator's glow dimmed. What are we witnessing? The result, Vasquez said, his voice calm, of humanity being underestimated for far too long. For centuries, the Council races had fought predictable wars, wars of attrition, of massive fleets and grand strategies. But humans? They didn't fight by the rules. They didn't rely on brute strength. They adapted. They evolved. And when the galaxy finally decided to test their strength, it was learning, too late, what humanity was truly capable of. The silence in the Galactic Council chamber stretched for an eternity. The once mocking delegates of the great species sat frozen, their expressions ranging from disbelief to sheer horror as the holographic projection continued to play. The battle unfolding on the screen wasn't just an anomaly, it was a massacre. The Brakthor warlord slammed a massive fist onto the crystalline table, his mandibles twitching. This is deception. Trickery. Your primitive species cannot fight like this. Vasquez tilted his head. Are you sure about that? The footage showed another devastating strike. The human fleet had been outnumbered nearly 20 to 1, yet the enemy forces were falling apart. It wasn't sheer firepower that won the day. It was tactics, precision, innovation. The Zelvani diplomat's golden eyes darted around in panic. Your ships, what are they doing? Vasquez folded his arms. They're thinking. The room fell into stunned silence. On the screen, a Brakthor dreadnought, a colossal warship bristling with weapons, attempted to fire another barrage. But the moment its plasma batteries charged, a ripple spread through its hull, and its power systems failed. Its own weapons overloaded. A split second later, the mighty warship exploded from the inside, its death throes sending a shockwave through its allies. How? The Athari senator murmured, leaning forward in fascination. Vasquez smiled. Because your fleets operate like blunt instruments. You rely on overwhelming force. Humans? We study. We learn. And then we exploit every single weakness. The footage zoomed in on the surviving human ships. They were weaving between enemy fire, darting in and out of cloak. They weren't just evading, they were rewriting the rules of engagement. The Stalker Protocol, Vasquez continued. Our ships aren't just piloted. They're partially controlled by advanced combat AIs that process battle data in real time. Every attack you make, every maneuver, we analyze, adapt, and counter before you even realize what's happening. The Brakthor warlord's claws dug into the table. Artificial intelligence is forbidden under council law. Vasquez shrugged. That's the thing about humans. We don't really care about your laws. More murmurs spread through the chamber. The Athari senator's glow pulsed rapidly. That ship that disrupted the dreadnought's core systems. What did it do? Vasquez smirked. You designed your warships to be unstoppable against direct assaults. We don't fight like that. Instead of punching through your armor, we infected your power relays with an adaptive electronic warfare virus. The Athari's glow dimmed even further. We turned your own ships into bombs. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Shouts. Accusations. Species that had once laughed at humanity now stared at Vasquez as if he were a monster. The Brakthor warlord bared his fangs. This violates every doctrine of warfare. You have no honor. Vasquez finally let out a short, humorless chuckle. Honor? You mean the same honor that had you planning an invasion of an unarmed human colony? The Brakthor warlord fell silent. Vasquez continued, his voice low but firm. Humanity isn't weak. We just fight wars differently. And if you force us to fight, he leaned forward. We don't lose. The footage reached its final moments. What had begun as a one-sided slaughter had become an outright extermination. Brakthor, Zelvani, and other warships were being systematically hunted down. The once arrogant alien fleets had been reduced to wreckage. And then the human flagship appeared on the screen. The Nemesis. A ship unlike anything the Council had ever seen before. It moved like a predator, a leviathan of black steel and shifting armor, its hull pulsing with strange energy fields. It was larger than anything humanity was supposed to be capable of building. And as it drifted toward the last few enemy ships, it sent out a single transmission. A voice. Cold. Unyielding. Surrender. Or be erased. The last surviving Brakthor ships tried to run. They didn't make it. Within moments, the screen flickered as the Nemesis launched what could only be described as a living weapon. Swarms of hunter-killer drones flooded the battlefield, shifting their attack patterns in perfect synchronization. The enemy ships, already crippled, didn't stand a chance. The battle was over. The Galactic Council had expected to watch humanity fall. Instead, they had witnessed something terrifying. The silence in the chamber was suffocating. The Athari senator finally spoke, his voice slow, measured. Humanity is not what we believed it to be. Vasquez simply nodded. No, we aren't. The Zelvani diplomat coiled tighter, her species equivalent of fear. If your kind has this power, why have you not conquered? Vasquez's smirk faded, replaced by something far colder. Because we don't want to. He let that settle in before adding, but if we're forced to. He let the implication hang in the air. The Brakthor warlord rose to his full height, his exoskeleton clicking in agitation. This cannot be allowed. You are too dangerous. Vasquez met his gaze without flinching. Then what's your move? The warlord hesitated. He had expected an easy conquest. A demonstration of power over a fledgling species. Instead, he had watched his fleets be annihilated. The Athari senator exhaled. Commander Vasquez. I motion for a recess in this meeting. There is much to discuss. Vasquez simply nodded. Take your time. We'll be watching. As he turned and left the council chamber, he tapped his wrist communicator. The voice of the nemesis SCI whispered in his earpiece. Shall we begin phase 2? Vasquez smirked. Not yet, he murmured. Let them sweat a little first. The Galactic Council chamber had never been this silent. Even during wars, negotiations, and interspecies conflicts, there had always been a predictable structure to diplomacy. The dominant species would posture, threats would be exchanged, and a resolution, whether peaceful or violent, would emerge. But this was different. Humanity wasn't supposed to be a major player in the galactic theater. By all known records, they were a relatively young species, a civilization barely out of their home system, still struggling with their own interstellar expansion. And yet, they had shattered an entire invasion fleet. They had rewritten the rules of war. They had forced the galaxy to take notice. The Zelvani diplomat, still coiled tightly in fear, finally broke the silence. We have gravely miscalculated. The Brakthor warlord, his mandibles twitching in fury, snarled. No. We underestimated them. He slammed a fist against the crystalline table, causing several smaller species to flinch. The mistake is correctable. We simply need overwhelming force. Humans cannot stand against the combined might of the Council's military. The Athari senator's glow pulsed erratically. You mean genocide? The warlord bared his fangs. I mean eradication before they grow into something unstoppable. The Zelvani diplomat flinched. Have you not been paying attention? They already are unstoppable. Did you see what they did to your dreadnoughts? They adapt faster than any species we have encountered. If we move against them now and fail? She didn't finish the sentence. The Athari senator leaned forward, his bioluminescent tendrils dimming in thought. We have to assume that what we saw in that battle was only a fraction of their capabilities. That warship, the Nemesis, was beyond anything we have records of. The Brakthor warlord growled. Then we must strike now before they... A voice cut through the chamber. No. The warlord turned, rage boiling in his crimson eyes, but the figure standing at the doorway silenced him immediately. Commander Vasquez had returned. His uniform was crisp, unruffled, as if he had not just walked away from the greatest political upheaval in Galactic Council history. His expression was unreadable, but his presence alone sent a ripple of unease through the room. Behind him stood two figures. One was Admiral Elaine Carter, a woman whose reputation in the human fleets was whispered with both respect and dread. The other, a machine. Not just any machine. A humanoid war form, sleek and armored, its surface shifting as if breathing. Its visor glowed a deep crimson, and the Nemesis' insignia was emblazoned on its chest. The Athari senator inhaled sharply. What is that? Vasquez's smirk was almost imperceptible. Our answer to your concerns? The Brakthor warlord snarled. A machine? You dare bring an AI weapon here? Vasquez gestured casually toward the warform. Oh, it's not just a weapon. It's an envoy. Humanity's first true artificial intelligence ambassador to the Galactic Council. Murmurs broke out again. The Zelvani diplomat's eyes widened. An AI? Ambassador? The warform's visor flickered, and then in a voice smooth as silk yet laced with something inhuman, it spoke. We prefer the term partner. The room froze. This wasn't just a demonstration of power. It was a statement. Humanity had done what no other species had dared. They had not just built AI, they had perfected it. And now they were openly declaring their alliance with their own creations. The Brakthor warlord's claws dug into the table. This is heresy. Vasquez tilted his head. No. This is progress. Admiral Carter finally spoke, her voice sharp and unwavering. We know what's happening behind closed doors. We know that many of you are already considering preemptive strikes against humanity. We also know that you are afraid. She leaned forward. You should be. A cold chill spread through the room. The Athari senator tried to recover his composure. Then what is your proposal? A war? Vasquez shook his head. No. A choice. He tapped a device on his wrist, and another holographic projection appeared. This one showed something even more terrifying than the battle footage. It was a map. A galactic map, one that displayed thousands of blinking red markers. The Brakthor warlord stiffened. What am I looking at? Vasquez's smirk returned. Every single critical weakness in your fleets. Your supply chains. Your homeworld defenses. Your command structures. He gestured at the warform. It took my friend here about 5 minutes to compile this data. The Zelvani diplomat shuddered. This is an act of war. Vasquez's expression darkened. No. This is a warning. He crossed his arms. You see, humanity doesn't want war. We never did. We never asked for this fight. But if you force our hand. He let the weight of his words sink in. We don't just win. We erase. Silence. Utter, deafening silence. Then the Athari senator exhaled slowly. His glow pulsed in understanding. You are offering us an alternative? Vasquez nodded. Exactly. You leave us alone. You let humanity thrive in its own way. In return, we do not unleash what we are truly capable of. The Warform's visor pulsed again. A logical compromise. The Brakthor warlord looked ready to snap, but he saw it now, the way the others were reacting. The way their confidence had crumbled. He knew. This war was already lost. The Zelvani diplomat inhaled sharply. We will need time to discuss this. Vasquez smiled. Take all the time you need. And with that, he turned Admiral Carter and the Warform following behind him. As he left the chamber, Vasquez tapped his earpiece. The AI's voice whispered in his ear. They will agree. Vasquez chuckled. Of course they will. And for the first time in history, the galaxy understood. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They were not prey. They were the storm. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so divided. After Vasquez's departure, silence had stretched for what felt like an eternity. The projection of humanity's overwhelming tactical superiority lingered in the air, an undeniable testament to their capabilities. Every leader present understood the weight of the decision before them. War, or survival. The Brakthor warlord sat motionless, his massive claws tapping against the crystalline table. His species had always thrived on conflict. To bow now would mean admitting inferiority, something his kind had never done. And yet, the sheer magnitude of what they had just witnessed was undeniable. The Athari senator's glow had dimmed, a sign of deep contemplation. The Zelvani diplomat coiled and uncoiled nervously, her segmented fingers twitching. Even the smaller species, those who had always aligned with the stronger factions, were now whispering among themselves. The decision was inevitable. But no one wanted to say it first. Finally, the Athari senator broke the silence. We need to come to a resolution before rash actions are taken. His bioluminescent tendrils shifted slightly. Attacking humanity would be suicide. We all recognize this. The Brakthor warlord growled low, his mandibles clicking in frustration. This is cowardice? No, the Zelvani diplomat countered sharply. This is self-preservation. The warlord's claws dug deeper into the table, carving faint grooves into the crystal. His entire species had been built upon conquest, upon dominance. But here, in this moment, they were being forced to acknowledge an enemy they could not defeat. It was unthinkable. And yet there was no other choice. The Athari senator turned to the others. Do we all understand the implications of this? A murmur of agreement passed through the chamber. The Zelvani diplomat exhaled sharply. Then I move that we officially recognize humanity as an independent power, free from interference, free from regulation, free from the control of the Galactic Council. Silence. Then one by one the heads of various species gave their solemn nods. Even the Brakthor warlord, after a long moment of hesitation, finally gave a sharp, reluctant nod. It was done. The galaxy had changed. And humanity had won. Aboard the UNS Nemesis, Vasquez stood on the bridge, staring at the vast expanse of space beyond the viewport. The stars stretched out in an endless sea of darkness, unyielding and eternal. But tonight they seemed brighter. Admiral Carter stood beside him, arms crossed. We did it? Vasquez smirked. Damn right we did. The AI envoy, now designated Erebus, stood nearby, its visor pulsing softly. Preliminary analysis suggests a 99.8% probability of compliance among the Council species. Those who dissent will find themselves isolated and weakened. Carter exhaled. Good. Let's keep it that way. Vasquez leaned against the console. So what now? Carter smiled. Now? She looked out at the stars. Now we build? The human race had just secured its place among the stars. And nothing would ever be the same again. Red Circle subscribe to the Void Narratives for more epic sci-fi stories.